What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. YouTubers, how you doing? We have to settle a dispute before we start the episode. Please hit the donate button and contribute. We're raising money for St. Jude all month, culminating in our draft-a-thon on August 31st. It's Adam, Dave, and Heath here. Okay, Heath, you and I are going to have to be the judge on something that Dave and Jamie were briefly debating on yesterday's show. Dave, lay it out for us.
Okay, so Jamie claims it's terrible etiquette to send food back at a restaurant. But first of all, if they get your order wrong, you're of course going to send it back. And if you don't like it,
if you stop on that, is it terrible? That's first debate. Is it terrible etiquette, Heath, to send food back?
Obviously there's a wide range of reasons you might send food back.
I didn't like that answer. I think it's okay every once in a while. Dave, go ahead.
Okay, so I decided that I wanted to try a specific cut of steak. I wanted to try a rib cap. I had never tried it before in my life. My wife and I found a place in South Florida that had it. We went there. I ordered it. I ate the whole thing. I liked it. I didn't love it. When the waiter came to collect the plates, he said, "How was dinner?" I said, "I liked it. I didn't love it." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I'm used to, when I eat a bone-in ribeye, it's, the fat melts in your mouth and the taste is totally different. And I thought this would taste superior to that. And it was more like a filet mignon. But I didn't know. It was my first time trying it. I said, don't worry. I liked it. I don't have a problem with it. But I just thought it wasn't as good as a ribeye. That's just how I felt. 15 minutes later, a server drops off a steak knife in front of me. And 5 minutes after that, another server brings out a fresh bone-in ribeye.
Ooh.
And they said, "Here, this is for you. We wanted you to try our bone-in ribeye so next time if you like it better than the rib cap you got." I didn't order it. I didn't ask for it. I didn't send any steak back. They brought it to me, and they sat it down in front of me, and they didn't charge me for it. It was nuts. And the steak was really good. I've been back since, and I've ordered that steak there. But I didn't eat 2 steaks at once, by the way. I took a lot of it home. But Jamie's like, you sent the steak back. And I just, I wanted to know if what I did, and this is the true story, my wife would vouch for me, is what I did wrong in any way, shape, or form.
If someone...
Not at all. Yeah, he cut out for a second there.
I liked it.
Keith, not at now. Not at this moment.
If somebody had asked me, how do you...
Unless you're going to say something bad.
How did you enjoy your meal? And I liked it. I would say that I liked it. I would not say I liked it. I didn't love it. I do think that was rude.
Oh, I don't think so at all. You're entitled, especially at a steakhouse. You paid good money for that steak. Dave, you're totally in the clear. And we are going to talk about sleepers right now.
I don't mean to be rude.
You're not
rude.
To
be rude.
You're all good, man. All right, let's get into our show.
Hazer, shut up. Let's get on with the show already.
Good idea.
I got things to do.
Good idea. Wake up. We're talking sleepers here on Fantasy Football today. What is a sleeper? We'll tell you about our difference between sleepers and breakouts and give you a whole bunch of names to know for late in your draft, guys that could really outperform their draft position. That's mainly what we're talking about. Today's sleepers. Wednesday is busts. Thursday is a breakouts bonanza. 4 different episodes with a different industry guest. That's going to be awesome. That's coming up on Thursday for you here in FFT. Adam, Dave, and Heath ready to talk sleepers and also some news on Alvin Kamara, some news on the Rams backfield. Matthew Stafford making progress. Darren Waller maybe going to get more red zone targets this year. That's going to be hard to do with Devontae Adams there, but that's what he said. They're going to get him more involved in the red zone. So we'll talk about all of that. We'll start the show right now with Dave and Heath. Heath, you can go first. Give me 2 of your favorite sleepers. All right.
Did Heath fall asleep?
Heath, why don't you leave and come? Well, let's kick Heath out and have him come back in. Heath, maybe you restart your computer. We'll get your internet going a little bit there. All right, Dave, give me 2 of your favorite sleepers.
I should steal Heath's sleepers right now, shouldn't I? I'm not going to do that. The first one that I'm really gravitating toward, and I've done a lot of research on, is Isaiah McKenzie. And I don't think a lot of people have talked about McKenzie. Buffalo Bills, it looks like he's their slot receiver this year. He's been practicing with the ones, didn't play in their first preseason game, like the starters didn't play in their first preseason game. And there's been tons of buzz about him out of Buffalo. I just listened to an interview that Josh Allen had today, or not, it wasn't today. I listened to it today. It's like a week old interview, but Allen was raving about McKenzie, how he's gotten better, how he's got speed. And I think the best way to think about him is he's Cole Beasley, but with speed. We saw a little bit of it last year. There was a game last season where Beasley was out. McKenzie replaced him. He had 12 targets. He had 11 catches. He had 125 yards receiving, and he had a touchdown. I don't think he's going to do that every week. Big shock. But I think he's going to be involved in this offense. And I did some digging. A quarter of all of Josh Allen's targets went to whichever receiver was in the slot last year. I think that's a decent dose. We also know that Beasley had at least 80 catches each of the past 2 years. I think it was 82 on the dot each of the last 2 years. And this is an offense that's going to throw the ball. And McKenzie should be way more explosive than Cole Beasley was. Beasley didn't even average 10 yards a catch last year. Here's the best part. McKenzie, rather, is going to be a very late pick in every draft. There's going to be a lot of people in fantasy that just do not know who he is, where he came from. I think that he's got all kinds of upside to finish as I want to say a low-end number 2 fantasy receiver. There could be 3 receivers in Buffalo that could finish top 24. I think that offense is strong enough. I think Allen is strong enough, and the price you can't beat. He's someone that I think can help fantasy managers in full PPR this year as soon as week 1 against the Rams.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you'll give me one more in a second, and I think if it's the running back, then that'll be kind of the most high-end guy on your list. But I think if you look at
I'm going to go in a different direction.
All right. If you look at Dave's list of sleepers and Heath's list of sleepers, I would say that Dave's are deeper. So if you're in a 10-team league, I don't know if you're drafting Isaiah McKenzie. I mean, he's definitely a good name to know. But I would say Dave's are deeper, which is great. We need both varieties here. Give me one more sleeper, Dave.
The other sleeper is a name that you've heard of before, David Njoku. And there might be people that turn off this podcast just because I said his name, because for years he's been somebody that fantasy managers have said, okay, he's got talent, he's got a chance, let's see what he can do. But he's been in a crowded tight end room and in a crowded offense with some shaky quarterback play. And that's not going to change. There's going to be shaky quarterback play, but that receiving core in Cleveland has really been drained. It's Amari Cooper and not a whole heck of a lot else. And they just paid Njoku a ton. I've started to do research on him as well. I've talked to some friends in Cleveland. It looks like David Njoku's got a chance to be the second most target getter in Cleveland, which, I mean, that's what you're looking for from a tight end, is to be first or second in targets on his team. Cleveland's offense isn't the one you necessarily want to go with. But here's the kicker. You can draft Njoku late, and you can start him week 1. He plays against Carolina. I think that's an okay matchup. Week 2 against the Jets, I think that's a good matchup. So 2 good matchups to start the year for the Browns. The quarterback issue is problematic, but it's Brissett. We know that Brissett isn't a big chance taker. He doesn't throw downfield. He might check it down a lot. Njoku could end up being a 5-catch per game tight end in an offense that just doesn't have a lot of weapons to it. And just like McKenzie, late round pick, not on the radar of a lot of the people that you play with in your fantasy league.
I don't know, man. I would love him. I mean, I would call him breakout if Watson were the quarterback, because I think there's a great chance for him to be number 2 on the team in targets. But Jacoby Brissett is just one of the worst quarterbacks for fantasy purposes. And the Browns are going to run the ball an absolute ton. You have low pass volume and bad passer. I just don't know how David Njoku gives you anything consistently. I just don't want to draft him.
Can I give you one other note that I think you might like? Think back to last year. When did Mike Gesicki become a thing in Miami?
Was he? Oh, he had that midseason stretch.
It actually started before the midseason.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay,
I mean, you know where I'm going with it.
Yeah. So the Las Vegas game. Yeah, I guess a lot of Brissett there, but no, I mean, not really.
It kicked off with Brissett. It kicked off with Brissett. Brissett had 3 games, weeks 3 through 5.
Yeah.
Gesicki averaged 14 PPR points per game with 2 games over 15 PPR points. And Gesicki and Njoku, I would say, are very similar in terms of skill set. I think Njoku could be better than Gesicki, to be honest with you. I think part of the problem with Njoku is that he never really got the opportunity to be the guy. Because right when it looked like he was going to get that opportunity, the Browns brought in Austin Hooper, and they kind of pushed David Njoku to the side. Okay. And now Hooper's gone. Harrison Bryant is another tight end they have. I like the talent coming out of FAU. I just don't know if he's going to be able to ascend. I think Njoku is going to get a shot this year. It's a low risk, high reward deal at the tight end position. He could end up being fairly useful. And I think about all the other tight ends that I've tried to put into this spot as a late round guy. Gerald Everett looks like he's got some competition at his own position in Chargers camp. Noah Fant was playing with, he played the whole first half for the Seahawks while DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett sat out. I wonder what that means. That kind of freaked me out a little bit. Gesicki, I'm very uninterested in. Kyle Rudolph is touchdown or bust. We could talk about other tight ends, but I think Njoku's got a profile that gives him a shot to be decent. The only other one that I think fantasy managers will take first is Albert O in Denver. But what are the odds that he's going to end up being first or second on his team in targets?
Well, you have him listed as a sleeper too. So who would you rather have, Njoku or Albert O?
I have Njoku ranked ahead of Albert O.
Okay. All right, let's bring in Heath. Hello, Heath.
Maybe
Heath. Yeah. We did a little computer reboot. The old turn it off, and turn it back on again trick. All right, Heath. Why don't you give me a tight end? I'm just going to ask you for two of your favorite sleepers. You can do that as well. But since we're talking about Njoku, you have a couple of tight ends on the list that you provided today, Irv Smith and Tyler Higbee. I know you'd take Irv Smith over David Njoku. Would you take Tyler Higbee ahead of David Njoku? And why does everyone hate Tyler Higbee?
I would draft any tight end that I would draft over David Njoku.
Okay.
I just don't have any interest in the Jacoby Brissett-led Cleveland Browns. It's low volume, low efficiency, and a tight end that's never lived up to the hype or the athleticism that he currently possesses. Irv Smith, I think, he was a top 12 tight end in consensus rankings last year. And then he missed the year with injury, and we've just kind of cast him off. And I don't really believe that. I think he's going to be better than Tyler Conklin was last year, which was a high-end number 2 tight end. He has a chance to be the number 3 on this team in targets behind Jefferson and Thielen. And Thielen's had so many injury problems that it could be Jefferson, Osborne, and Irv Smith by the time we get to the middle of the year. Now, Irv's had some injury problems as well, but he's expected to be ready for the start of the season. He's still just 23 years old. There's no reason we should have expected him to be good already in his NFL career, especially considering that he missed last year due to injury.
Yep, second round pick, 50th overall in 2019, finished pretty strong at the end of the 2020 season before missing all of 2021. That is Irv Smith.
And then I think people view Tyler Higbee as not having enough upside. Like they think he's just a boring guy who's going to finish around tight end 12, but that's not fun. And I could get that, except for the 5-game stretch that we saw from Tyler Higbee that showed that if Sean McVay decides to throw it to him that many times, he does have that much upside.
And even at the end of last year, he was really good the last 6 games of the season, including the playoffs. He was fantastic, Tyler Higbee.
But I think outside of the guy like Cole Kmet might get 100 targets because there's nobody else to throw to in Chicago. But the guys behind Higbee, I don't have near as much target upside in my opinion. And most of them don't play in as good of offense as Higbee does. And so I don't think that just because he didn't score touchdowns a year or two, he can't have a good touchdown year.
Tyler Higbee, the last 6 games of the season, including 2 postseason games, he was on pace for 82 catches, 878 yards, 6 touchdowns on 113 targets. He had 41 or more yards in every game. So strong.
And people like poo-poo Higbee for that because, okay, he's had 2 good 6-game stretches. Yay. Well, that's 2 more good 6-game stretches than most of the tight ends being drafted like in the 6 spots in front of him.
Yeah, he's tight end 20 right now. All right, give me a non-tight end, a sexy sleeper here. Sexy sleeper from Heath.
Well, I mean, like I wrote not for long next to Dameon Pierce and George Pickens, but they still have ADPs outside of the top 10 rounds. And I would guess in Pickens' case, he still will in a lot of drafts for a while. So both of those guys, I think, have chances to be like they have the talent. And they have the opportunity to be top 24 at their position. I expect Pickens to be better than Claypool. I moved him ahead of Claypool before that game on Saturday. And Dameon Pierce showed just in a few cuts that he has something that Marlon Mack, Rex Burkhead, Royce Freeman do not possess. That's explosiveness.
Let's talk about Dameon Pierce really quickly here and where he's going. We did talk about this on yesterday's show, but let's bring it up again. Dameon Pierce I have his ADP kind of parsed out. So he's RB 45 on Fantasy Pros, but there's no specific date range there. Over the past week on NFC, Dameon Pierce, rookie running back for the Texans out of Florida, is 107th overall. He's RB 38. Over the past 2 days, he's a little bit higher than that. He's RB 36 overall. I think he's something like 98th overall. He's RB 36 and about 98th overall. And he's going just behind the Seattle guys, just behind Kareem Hunt. And do you think Dameon Pierce, I mean, you said you'd take him over Miles Sanders, Heath, on the running backs preview. Would you take Dameon Pierce over Kareem Hunt and the Seattle running backs?
And I have Dameon Pierce, Kareem Hunt, Miles Sanders like back to back to back. So that's the exact, like Sanders and Hunt's the same range for me. And I have the Seahawks backs behind them. So yes, he is he's a top 30 running back in that RB 28, 29 range for me right now. And there's a chance that if we get an indication from Houston that he's the week 1 starter, he could be a borderline top 24 guy. I think you could have that discussion with him and Antonio Gibson, or him and Cam Akers, especially if Akers continues to miss time. Him and Elijah Mitchell, if Mitchell can't practice, we know he's not going to play in the preseason, but if Mitchell can't practice, like there's a chance Pierce could sneak into that RB 24 discussion.
Do you care, before I even give the numbers, because I won't do it if you don't care, do you care what the number 2 wide receiver or pass catcher in general has done in 4 years that Mitch Trubisky's been a starter?
4 years that Mitch Trubisky has been a starter? No, I do not. Just because it was Matt Nagy's offense, so it's a completely different thing. And while I don't project the Steelers to throw the ball near as much as they did with Ben Roethlisberger as their quarterback, I do project them to throw it a lot more than the Bears did when Trubisky was their quarterback.
Well, Trubisky in 4 years as a starter averaged, first 2 years, 27.5 pass attempts. That's crazy low. 31. In his third year, he averaged 37 pass attempts per game. In his fourth year, he averaged 33.6 pass attempts per game. I did remove some partial games in there. There were a few of those, but the games he started and finished or came close to finishing, last 2 years, Trubisky averaged 37 and 33.5 pass attempts per game, basically. So that wasn't, completely insignificant. But okay, if you don't care, then I won't bring it up. But suffice to say, he has not given us a good number 2 wide receiver or anything really. But he did give us 2 top 12 wide receivers in back-to-back seasons. It was both Allen Robinson. But we did see Trubisky do that. Okay, so George pick, because I guess that's what I'm thinking here. It's like if I have a late round wide receiver pick, right? I'm on a wide receiver sleeper. I do love. I mean, the talent of George Pickens is intoxicating. This was a 5-star recruit who just unfortunately barely played in Georgia. But as a freshman in 2019, he had 727 yards and 8 touchdowns in 12 games, and then he played 12 games for the rest of his career, including none in 2022. But if I'm looking at a late round wide receiver, am I really going to take, well, I shouldn't say, am I going to take the number 2, maybe number 2 wide receiver, because Claypool, exists, on Pittsburgh, or, Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson, or a guy who, I don't know, maybe Tony ends up in that range, who has a chance to be the number 1 wide receiver on a team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know how good of and this could be wrong, but I don't know that Doubs and Watson have a significant chance to be number 1 on the Packers in targets this year.
No, not now. I don't think we can say that now.
I didn't mean that they did. I meant Kadarius Toney did. But would I rather take a guy who's going to be number 2 on the Packers as opposed to number 2 on the Steelers? Do I, if I'm looking at number 2 wide receivers, do I go for this guy's got the most talent?
Can you tell me what Aaron Rodgers' number 2 wide receiver has done the last 4 years?
Well, because that's irrelevant. Because
why is that irrelevant?
No, it makes your argument bad.
It's irrelevant because he doesn't have Devontae Adams. I wouldn't care about these guys if Devontae Adams
doesn't have Allen Robinson.
He has Deontay Johnson.
Like I said,
Deontay Johnson. I mean, there's nothing. Okay. Deontay Johnson has been a target hog. Deontay Johnson's the number 1 wide receiver. Well, Allen Robinson, I've made this case. Allen Robinson wasn't really a great receiver with the Bears. He just got a ton of targets. Okay. The overall question is, how much does the quality of the offense and the quality of the passing game matter when you are trying to make your late round wide receiver selection?
Oh, if you're asking me, I think it matters less than normal. I mean, you don't want to take you poo-poo Njoku because Jacoby Brissett's his quarterback. If I was saying to take David Njoku in round 6 or even round 10, that would be a mistake because of the quarterback situation. But you're trying to catch a little lightning in a bottle with a late pick. You're trying to find talented players who are going to see a lot of targets with late picks. And I think the word lot should be modified a little bit when we're talking about late round picks. Maybe 100 targets instead of the usual 120, 140 that we might look for.
Did you see that projection for George Pickens?
With an early and mid-round pick. What projection for
bring it back up?
The one we just showed on the screen for the CBS Sports.
No, I don't see our screen while we record. What did it say?
119 targets for George Pickens.
Okay. So that seems a little wild to me.
I'm going to take the under there. 116.
I would too.
116. Heath lied.
It may have just changed. They're constantly
How many
being updated
touchdowns
to
did they
become
give
more
him?
accurate.
All right, hold on. I want to compare that projection with your projection, Heath.
Yeah, because I just
With
updated
Pickens.
it on Saturday. I have him at 114.
Wow.
Okay.
That's really close. And catches, yards, touchdowns?
70, 940, and 6.
And this projection is 72 catches, 908 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So fairly similar. I will say people probably don't know this, but when you see a projection either in our draft room or on our stream or whatever, it's a sports line projection. It's not a Heath, Dave, or Jamie projection. It is a sports line projection. Guys, I want to move on and get to some more names here. We got some news and notes to get to. I want to talk about the podcast league. It is time. You can, well, you know what? I'm going to hold off a day because I need to make sure.
It is time tomorrow.
I just realized that I don't know the exact date of the podcast league. It's already been set. I'm guessing it's a Tuesday night, like right before the season starts, but I don't know for sure. But I'm going to give you the date and time so you know if you can make the draft before you give a submission. But just be on the lookout. We'll be talking about the podcast league soon. If you're watching on youtube.com/fantasyfootball today, thank you, first of all. And please hit that button to raise money and donate to St. Jude. We've raised $1.3 thousand so far, and we're trying to get to 10K. So please donate. The draftathon is August 31st. It'll be a live stream for 6 hours. First 2 hours are NHQ. The last 4 hours are right here from 8 p.m. to midnight at youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. But we're going to try to raise as much money as we can for St. Jude throughout the rest of the month. So please be a part of that. Okay, let's do some news and notes. It looks more and more unlikely that Alvin Kamara will be suspended this season, or it looks more likely that he won't be suspended this season, according to Adam Schefter. So when should Alvin Kamara be drafted?
Late round 1.
Early round 2.
That's where he's going to go. It's going to be right in that range.
How does Kamara compare to Aaron Jones and DeAndre Swift?
I have him ahead.
I have it Jones, Kamara, Swift. But I was the reason that on yesterday's Winners and Losers podcast, you guys had to have a 3-minute discussion about DeAndre Swift because I put him on the list.
Right.
So I'm a little more worried about Swift than I am the other two.
Glad you did. It was a good discussion. Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson have soft tissue injuries. I go back.
Yuck. This has been pretty much one of the worst outcomes you could have asked for Cam Akers. This training camp period, preseason period, August. This August has been bad for Cam. I was hoping for highlight videos and clear number one back and Sean McVay talking him up, and it has not been that. I am nervous about the Rams running backs.
It's almost as if Cam and Antonio Gibson and Josh Jacobs all got together and said, who can drive their ADP down the lowest before the start of the season? Because I just take turns moving these guys to the back of the line. Elijah Mitchell's behind them all. But I do have, I'm going to have Clyde. I don't know. I don't quite yet, but I will have Clyde Edwards-Helaire ahead of all three of them.
You know, I think if you like these guys, if you believe in them, you're starting to get an opportunity. They fit into maybe the sleepers show because Darrell Henderson can't stay healthy. I can't say that Akers can, but I could just see, I could see either one of them really being very, very valuable at some point, hopefully for a big chunk of the season. But if you like Gibson, if you like Akers, if you like Jacobs, then it's actually kind of a good offseason because they're going to just keep on falling. And I wonder at what point do they become great values?
I mean, there's downside now with Gibson that there might not be a point where he's a good value.
I still think all three are good values in round 6.
Yeah, for now. Akers, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'd say Akers in round 6 is fine.
All right. 12-team league is when we say rounds, we're always talking 12-team leagues.
Yeah, I would say round 7 for Akers in a 10-team league.
Matthew Stafford is practicing in full, so that's good. They might pump the brakes at some point, but right now he's making good progress. Darren Waller says the team plans to use him more in the red zone this season. So from weeks 1 through 11, Waller got hurt in week 12. Waller had 11 red zone targets, which ranked 12th in football. Hunter Renfrow also had 11 in that stretch. Derek Carr had the 7th most red zone pass attempts in the NFL. So Carr was throwing the ball pretty decent amount overall and in the red zone. Waller and Renfrow were both tied for 12th most, and now they bring in Devontae Adams. So I don't know what to make of this. I mean,
he almost it sounded like he was throwing Gruden under the bus. Like they didn't really have a plan for me. Now there's a plan.
I thought he said defenses didn't have to plan for me. Now they do. I may have read that quote wrong.
I might have read that quote wrong.
Adam, what was
one of us
quote?
is an idiot. It's probably me.
I'm not sure. Neither of you guys can read, so you both probably got it wrong.
Well, you have the quote in the notes, don't you?
No, he just said that teams are going to have to, that he's going to be used more in the red zone. I'll find it. Let's go to the next. I'll come back to it. Go to the next news item here. Seahawks acquired J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He doesn't matter, does he?
No.
Jimmy
he'll
Ward,
be cut.
Safety for the...
Unless he can play quarterback for Seattle.
Let me run through this. Jimmy Ward could miss the start of the season due to a hamstring injury. Melvin Gordon returned to practice. Pittsburgh running back Jalen Warren was getting first-team work, undrafted free agent.
Yeah, he's impressed in Steelers camp. He didn't impress in the game as much, but
I thought McFarland looked really good early in that game.
He looked great. I don't know if it was a combination of him running behind. I think some of the Steelers starters were playing on that offensive line. And I wonder if it was that or if it was they was running at Seattle and that defense just didn't look good early on.
I cannot read the exact Darren Waller quote.
I got it. Yeah.
I sent it to him.
But Dave was right. But the quote's fantastic.
There were a lot.
Go ahead, Adam. I just sent it to you on GChat. You can read it word for word.
There was a lot of times in the last couple of years where I felt like there wasn't a clear defined attack in the red zone or like a plan for me specifically. I was kind of like, what the heck am I doing sometimes? But now I kind of feel like that's something that's in place with Josh McDaniels. For me, there's no reason why my big butt shouldn't be dominating in the red zone at all times.
Did you just say Darren Waller is a big butt?
He said it, not me.
That's kind of rude. Speaking of rude.
I do have news here. J.K. Dobbins, John Harbaugh says J.K. Dobbins is kind of back on track. All right.
Kind of back on track?
Okay. I thought he looked a little better than he did before, so he continues to improve, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
There was also because you had said, where is this coming from? Rightly, I think. Ramondre Stevenson was working in the James White role in the 2-minute drill yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. That's in my notes. You didn't let me get to it. You stole that from me. So
that was a good steal, Heath. I applaud you.
It was well timed as well.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more sleepers for you, and we'll try to read your emails at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. Hey, question for you guys.
Yeah.
What is a sleeper? Give me your definition.
Someone that you draft late with the hope he outperforms his ADP or the value that you take him at greatly.
Someone who is being drafted outside of the single digit rounds, who I have ranked higher than their ADP.
Okay, and I'm going to tell you the difference between a sleeper and a breakout. You guys should know it, but you remember my saying, right?
Yes. This is a good saying.
Yeah, it is. You want to say it? You want me to say it?
No, this is your quote.
Okay. Sleepers win you weeks. Breakouts win you leagues. TM.
Didn't
that
Jamie
should be
used
on
to
a
say
t-shirt.
Jamie
That
did
should be
not
on a
say
t-shirt.
that. Jamie never said that. Thank you, though, for doing that. Okay, let's get to some more sleepers. Dave gave you Isaiah McKenzie. We got to talk about James Robinson. He's on Dave's sleepers list. His ADP right now, RB 37 on Fantasy Pros, 108th overall. And I thought, well, maybe James Robinson over the last week, I'll look at the NFC average draft position. I like to do that because you can set a date range. Let's see what it is over the last week. It's RB 47. So even later for James Robinson, 126th overall. So I can say with confidence right now, he is not a top 100 pick in most drafts. And maybe people want to just see him play. I don't know. But really, what an opportunity to get starting running back. So, Dave, make the case for James Robinson as a sleeper.
You kind of just did for me. We know that in the past, he's been a fantastic fantasy running back. He was top 10 in PPR points per game 2 years ago as a rookie. You want to talk about a sleeper? He was the ultimate sleeper 2 seasons ago. And last year, with all the issues that Jacksonville had, he still was 25th in PPR points per game. And I think if he had a regular amount of touches from week to week and a good offense, he'd finish higher than 25th. It's a different look now for him. He's coming off of an Achilles injury, and that's something that could be impacting Cam Akers. And we don't know how it's impacting James Robinson, but I think the Jaguars are slowly bringing him along. He hasn't had any contact in practice yet. He didn't play in the first preseason game, but he's starting to work more in 7-on-7 drills. And I think they're trying to time it up where he's practicing with the full starters in 11-on-11 drills and maybe even getting into the preseason before week 1. And I don't see ETN as a workhorse back. I don't think the Jaguars necessarily see him that way either. They need somebody to help ETN, and they need to have a rushing presence. And I think Robinson right now on their roster is the best guy to give him that. And so taking the chance on him, what'd you say? He was the 40th running back off the board, 47th running back off the board?
37th on Fantasy Pros and 47th in the last week.
I mean, this is such a golden opportunity for you to take Robinson round 9+, and he could end up performing like a round 4 pick.
I just don't. I don't disagree with anything Dave said. I don't think it's possible for James Robinson to do these things and Travis Etienne to be a good pick where he is being drafted.
Yeah,
I don't think Jacksonville is going to have 2 top 25 running backs.
I've been saying that. I mean, I've been mostly bringing that up with Jamie because Jamie just loves ETN, he likes him in round 3.
There's a couple of things from that game. ETN didn't look as good on his target as I was hoping he would. And he does bounce the ball outside very, very quickly. And I just wonder, like, one of the reports was that Robinson, they were hoping could play more on passing downs because of pass protection. And then I wonder in short yardage if Robinson's the guy.
Oh, he's got to be.
You would think so.
I mean, you take one look at Travis Etienne, and he doesn't look like a football player even when he's got pads on.
Coaches don't usually like guys who bounce it out at the goal line very much. No. So it's hard for me to see if Travis Etienne's not like doing all of the passing game work and he's not the short yardage back, how he's a good pick in round 4.
I can try to answer that. Look at the other targets in Jacksonville and think about how ETN's speed makes him an absolute game breaker. And I would imagine that both Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson would agree that finding ways to get him the ball more than just 4 or 5 times a game through the air is something that they can work with and something that they want to do. It's almost like I almost wonder if they see him as an Alvin Kamara type as a pass catcher. And there isn't, Christian Kirk has never been a number 1 guy. We'll see how he does. They've got Zay Jones, Laquan Treadwell, and Evan Ingram. It sounds like a bunch of receivers from like fantasy losers past. ETN could be first on the team in targets, much less second. That's how those guys could both be top 25.
I'm not drafting Trevor Lawrence if that's the case. But
I think he's a sleeper too.
I know, but he can't be throwing to James Robinson more than anyone. That would be bad. But I mean, look, that I find that question, Heath, like how is he good in the 4th round, to be much harder in non or half PPR. Full PPR, you could at least
Yes.
make the case where he's just going to have so many catches. But in non PPR, forget it unless he wins the job. I guess you could say he's a former first round pick. James Robinson was not even drafted, and
I think
Who
Evans
even cares?
more
I know, I
athletic
don't
for
care
sure than
either.
James Robinson.
Robinson's
James Robinson's
been good.
a professional running back.
Yeah, he's been good. He really
Yeah.
has. He was a top 8 running back in 2020 as a rookie, and per game top 8 as well. Last year, he had a couple of games where he played a combined 19 snaps. But if you took those games out, he was on pace for 1,331 total yards, 43 catches, 11 touchdowns. So when he was actually used, James Robinson was really good. So I think we would all agree. Great sleeper, James Robinson, right?
Yeah, I do. I love him.
As long as he can get back to healthy.
Are you taking Isaiah Pacheco or James Robinson?
Robinson.
I'm pretty sure I need to check that. I'm Pacheco that. Yeah, I have Robinson a round ahead of Pacheco, but I still have Robinson in the round 10 range.
Let me just say this. If Robinson were healthy and participating in every aspect of practice, where would you have him ranked?
Oh, probably around 6, but
Right.
like
You're getting a round 6 player potentially in round 9 or 10.
I think, and somebody brought this up on Twitter in maybe not the best of ways, but like the difference between the way we talk about Cam Akers and James Robinson, like there's a little hashing out that needs to be done there.
You're right, because we've seen good efficiency from Robinson.
They're both in the Achilles club.
Well, and Akers was really
Rushed
pretty
back.
bad when he came back.
Rushed back, looked bad, hasn't been great since.
But has had far longer to recover than Robinson has.
I don't know if that's true.
Well, he tore his in.
I mean, technically, Robinson's still recovering.
When did he tear his Achilles?
Right before training camp.
Yeah.
And
July?
Robinson played 14 games last year.
Right.
Okay,
So Robinson's on. I'm saying Akers now has had far longer than Robinson, not Akers had before.
Oh, okay.
Of course, yeah. All right, so let's go, Dave. I'm going to finish up with your running backs here, and we'll go kind of quick, and then you can do all your wide receivers as well. But you've
Okay.
got Isaiah Pacheco, Zamir White of the Raiders, Ty Montgomery of the Patriots, and Trey Sermon of the 49ers. So Pacheco for the Chiefs, Zamir White for the Raiders, Ty Montgomery for the Patriots, Trey Sermon for the Niners.
Pacheco was the second running back up for Kansas City in their preseason game against Chicago. The stats weren't good. I still like how he played. He was quick, both off the snap and into routes, caught a ball, turned upfield, took a hit, stayed balanced, gained 5 yards after the play. Huge riser in camp. Didn't play with the second. He played a little bit, I think, on the second drive, but didn't play into the second quarter. Was ahead of Ronald Jones, was ahead of Jerick McKinnon. Gives the Chiefs an option if they get sick of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You can still take them late. People who aren't paying attention to fantasy, like you guys are who are listening, don't even know who Isaiah Pacheco is. I think he's absolutely got the profile of a sleeper that's worth taking in like round 10, in that same range where I would take George Pickens. Pacheco is there for me. Ty Montgomery, I think, is the leader to be the passing downs back for New England, even though he prominently said that Ramondre Stevenson was getting that work in the 2-minute offense. We'll see. Montgomery's never been great, but if he's got the James White role, that's a ticket to 60 catches over the course of a season. He's a PPR only sleeper. Trey Sermon made my list because I went to watch the 49ers game, and I started with Tyrann Davis-Price because he's the rookie and always excited to see what the rookies could do. And I thought Davis-Price looked okay. Trey Sermon looked better, and Trey Sermon was playing ahead of him. There's been talk that he's been a good passing downs back for San Francisco. I'm kind of intrigued by Trey Sermon, and I think a lot of people will want nothing to do with him. And we know that Elijah Mitchell is already banged up. He had 5 injuries last year, et cetera. And Jeff Wilson, I don't know if he's anything more than just a guy. Sermon could elevate himself. He's someone I'm taking late in drafts. And then Zamir White.
What did you make of the fact that Trey Sermon played and Jeff Wilson didn't in the preseason?
That's fine. I think Trey Sermon's got a lot of ground to catch up in Kyle Shanahan's mind to earn a prominent role. And so they're seeing what he can do. I don't know
who to target. And then all 3 backup running backs have very similar ADPs over recently.
Right. Everybody's
Take the
kind of
cheap
taking their shot.
They're all cheap though.
But I think like the Wilson thing made me think more of the Brandon Bolden thing with the Raiders. Like they know what they have in Jeff Wilson.
Right.
Jeff Wilson himself has had a hard time staying healthy, and he's older. They don't need to see Jeff Wilson in training camp. They need to see Sermon and TDP. And I will say there's just a little more steam on the Ramondre Stevenson pass catching train, because we know Bill Belichick only tells the truth. Ramondre has done a real good job improving his pass game skills. Emphasized that he likes what he's seen from Stevenson as a pass protector in year 2.
Good.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, that is big. And I mean, if Dameon Harris gets traded or gets hurt,
well,
you want to talk about a guy you can draft in the middle rounds and have value of it's like a 3rd round pick.
If their run game split is the same as it was in the second half of last year, and Stevenson takes the James White role, then it's Stevenson over Harris by a mile.
Yes, no question.
Yep, that's pretty significant, because actually when Bill Belichick calls out a player for doing well, that it does hold a lot of weight, doesn't it? That's not Pete Carroll saying it.
Well, he did it earlier this August. I shouldn't say this year, this month, with Mac Jones. And Mac Jones started training camp looking good, and then everything kind of bottomed out because they decided to change things up in New England's offense.
I think it's different, though, because this is telling us about – we know Mac Jones is a starting quarterback. This is telling us about a very important role in the Patriots offense that Ramondre Stevenson is definitely making progress toward gaining, or at least being a part of. And Dameon Harris isn't going to be their 3rd down back. But all right, anyway.
Is anybody taking him in round 7 right now?
8.
Stevenson?
Yeah.
No, but I will be moving him up.
Me too.
Round 8 range, right in the Rashad Penny, Ken Walker range.
I think Dameon Harris is just not going to be on any of my teams unless it's non-PPR. But there's just not a lot going for Dameon Harris unless he just gets 70% of the carries.
Unless he gets traded to the Rams, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I don't dislike him in half PPR as long as he's being drafted where he is in PPR. Does that make sense?
Which is
like round 7, 8.
Yeah.
69th overall. So the end of round 6.
So that doesn't go that high in our drafts, but yes.
Dameon Harris. Okay, sorry, Dave. We've got this big group of wide receivers. We're going to get to Heath's sleepers to end the show. But big group of wide receivers, mostly young guys here. Giants wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson. Packers wide receiver Romeo Doubs, who's over the past week wide receiver 67 on NFC. James Prochet for Baltimore. Paris Campbell for the Colts. And Zay Jones for the Jaguars. So
Jones is there because I think he's just going to play a lot. I think Prochet will too. Paris Campbell, if he stays healthy, is a candidate for 50 catches. Robinson's the one who's interesting to me because I think Kenny Golladay is spent. I don't think he's good anymore. Kadarius Toney's on and off the field. Sterling Shepard isn't back anytime soon. I don't think Colin Johnson's going to be a significant factor in New York. Wan'Dale Robinson could end up just falling into good production by virtue of being healthy and available and in a role that this current coaching staff designed for him.
I wonder how long, because I think like week 1, there's maybe not, but there's almost got to be no question that Kenny Golladay is starting and playing most of the snaps. How long?
Oh, at this point, I don't know if that's true.
I mean, they owe him so much money still.
Yeah, he will be. Absolute guarantee. At least at the start.
I think his dead cap number is $31 million. It's $15 million next year.
Who else are they going to play?
Is Tony healthy?
And Shepard and
Shepard won't be ready for week 1.
Shepard won't be ready.
Golladay and Tony will theoretically be on the outside, and Robinson will be in the slot. But you're right. I mean, Golladay cannot get open. Tony cannot stay on the field. I didn't really think about it that way because I'm not interested in the number 2 or 3 receiver on the Giants, and Barkley's going to be a huge part of the passing game. But he might be, by default, Wan'Dale Robinson might be the number 1 wide receiver, but the way on the Giants, or in fantasy, but the way you said it was almost like you like him better than Romeo Doubs. Is that the case?
It is. I would draft, and you know how I feel about Doubs, but I still think Doubs has work to do to be the number 2 guy in Green Bay. Still got to prove it.
Okay.
And we talked a lot about
just
one of the reasons
why
why Jamie and Heath love Aaron Jones more than I do is because they think that Green Bay is going to run the ball a lot.
No, We think that Aaron Jones might lead the Packers in receptions.
Okay, well, that hurts Romeo Doubs too.
Yeah.
Whichever way you slice it.
All right, let's go to Heath's sleepers. In just oh no, I'm sorry. 2 quarterbacks real quick, Dave. Trevor Lawrence is QB 19. He's going after Tua. He's going after Fields. Fields is one of Heath's sleepers. And Marcus Mariota is a 2 QB guy, and I think we laid that case out yesterday. He's going to run for about 400 yards per 17 games. He's acceptable. And for Trevor Lawrence, would you guys take Tua, Fields, or Lawrence?
I've got Fields at the top of that list, followed by Lawrence.
Yeah, Fields is one of my sleepers, and I would definitely take Fields. I have a harder time. I actually have Tua, I think, ahead of Lawrence now as well. And it's just like for the reasons Dave was saying about ETN, maybe leading this team in targets like Aaron Jones. I am so concerned that the passing game for Jacksonville won't actually be good and that the wide receivers won't actually be good.
You know how I feel about Trevor. Let me tell you how I feel about Trevor Lawrence. He is far enough down in the rankings where for us in our 12-team leagues, just don't need to draft him. He's a luxury. And I do always pretty much not always, but usually take 2 quarterbacks, but he's not one of them because he's just far enough down in the rankings. And yet I think I'm really going to potentially regret not having Trevor Lawrence because he does have the potential to, at some point in his career, be the best quarterback in football. And year 2 is the year that players often break out. Sometimes it's year 3. And for quarterbacks, I think it's a little harder in year 2. But he can run. My God, he just looks the part. He just looks like a superstar. Yes. And I don't know. I mean, there's a lot going against him. He doesn't have great receivers. I think the offensive line is going to be a struggle. I'm not a huge Doug Peterson guy, but hopefully he can kind of resurrect his career. But God, I almost wish I had to draft Trevor Lawrence. I don't have to. I almost wish there was a case where all my favorite guys were taken and I had to draft Trevor Lawrence, but I'm not going to take him over Fields. Obviously not going to take him over Lance. That's, that used to be a discussion. But I would take him over Tua Tagovailoa, I think. How about you guys? I don't remember that answer.
I would.
I mean, I think Tua's got pretty exceptional pedigree himself and now has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Oh, I get there's 100% great case for Tua. I don't think it's a bad call at all.
And a better offensive mind, probably.
He's got a lot more going for him. I just think Lawrence is kind of player that is just potentially on a different level.
He might be. I will say, like, for the struggles of Tua, the start of his career has been much better than the start of Trevor Lawrence's.
Oh, yeah. It's the start of Trevor Lawrence's career was the start and the end of Urban Meyer's career. I'm blaming it entirely on Urban Meyer. You suck, Urban Meyer. I don't know that I get a chance to say this. Urban Meyer is probably my least favorite person in the history of sports, other than, people who have committed crimes or something. But in terms of, I hate Urban Meyer so much. I'm going to bring on Shafi T, who was probably at UF during the Urban Meyer years. That guy was such a dirtbag. And wow. I hate him. And do you know how much I respect Jeremy Fowler, who works for ESPN and used to work with us? I used to work with him. He was the nicest guy. Urban Meyer, when 15% of every UF football player was getting arrested each week at that point, Urban Meyer had the gall to tell Jeremy Fowler that he was a bad guy. Urban Meyer is the biggest piece of garbage. I hate Urban Meyer.
Wow.
What college did you go to, Adam?
I went to Miami, but I hate him. And then all of it proven by his actions in Jacksonville. This guy has been a jerk for so long, and he screwed up Trevor Lawrence. And Schaefer, how do you feel about my Urban Meyer ads?
Well, I understand it because you went to Miami, and back when you guys were good, you guys could be good this year, we'll see. But back when you guys were good, you guys had some scummy players on that team as well. So maybe that's the thing. You need scumbags to win in college football. I don't know, because
I've heard that argument before.
Yeah, since Florida cleaned it up, we haven't been good in a long time too. We're on our 4th coach in how many years? So I don't know.
He was all about winning. He was a win at all costs coach. And,
yeah. And
which was exactly what Miami was the only time they've been good in your lifetime.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't honestly. You criticize all you want. Every team has. Urban Meyer was a different breed. He really was. He didn't care about all these violations. And
But you think that the Hurricanes did?
I think it's not just the Hurricanes. I think Urban Meyer stood out above everyone. He just was a different breed of lawlessness. And then, look at his time in Jacksonville.
I have read some long form pieces about Miami in the 80s and 90s that I really think maybe you should have read.
It's not about Florida. This is about Urban Meyer. He wasn't only the coach of Miami. He kicked someone. He
allegedly
doing that thing in the bar. I mean, that was all in 1 year with Jacksonville. The guy sucks.
Well, there weren't cameras and everything back in Miami's heyday, so everybody didn't have an iPhone. So I don't know. I like Urban Meyer just because he won us 2 national championships. Terrible person, probably a scumbag. But
thank you. All right, confirmed. All right. Let's go on to Heath's sleepers here. We'll take a 30-second break for Paramount Plus right here. Check out what's coming up on Paramount Plus, and we'll talk about Heath's sleepers.
We found your daughter. She's alive.
Mister? It's Mommy.
4 years is a long time.
Welcome home.
I think something's going on with Esther.
She seemed different.
Since she got back, there's constant lying. There's outbursts of anger.
Orphan First Kill, rated R, streaming August 19th on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back. All right. Heath likes Justin Fields and Carson Wentz as sleepers. And I'm just starting to feel like there's going to be some blowback for what I said about Urban Meyer. But I
was thinking that the entire time you were talking.
He's just the worst. All right. Justin Fields as a sleeper. He is QB 17 in average draft position right now. And certainly doesn't have the momentum that Trey Lance, because once upon a time it was, hey, who do you like better, Fields or Lance? Now it's not even a question for most people. So yeah, you like Justin Fields.
This weekend was the first time that I moved Lance ahead of Fields, but I have them QB 12 and QB 13. I have plenty of questions about both of them. If passers think either one of them could finish the year third amongst quarterbacks in rushing yards behind Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. Maybe even one of them gets ahead of Jalen Hurts if Hurts is going to throw the ball 600 times. But we saw it last year. His final 7 starts, he averaged more than 50 rushing yards per game. I wish that they would go get Will Fuller, and Will Fuller could be healthy and he could have a good number 2 wide receiver. Maybe they'll find a number 2 wide receiver over the next couple of weeks. His weapons concern me. But I think Fields has a very good chance to be a top 12 quarterback.
Okay, yeah, his 17-game pace based on his 9 healthy starts was 686 rushing yards. And he's shown the ability to rush for a lot more than that. I mean, it was almost 1,000 yards in his last 6 healthy starts. So Justin Fields, QB 17 right now. Carson Wentz is QB 24. Is he anything more than a 2 QB guy?
I mean, nobody's going to draft him as more than a 2 QB guy, but this is a guy who I think his worst finish is QB 14 in seasons that he's played at least 14 games. And he did finish as a high-end number 2 quarterback last year. And I could make an argument that he might throw the ball 100 times more than he did last year because of the difference from going to Indianapolis to Washington. And I could make the argument that he has the best set of pass catchers that he's ever had in his life, especially at wide receiver with Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, who I think is really special. So I do think he's undervalued. I will put him in the same tier as Derek Carr and Jameis Winston, and everyone will get mad at me about it. I think he's a great value in 2 quarterback leagues and not a bad stream to start guy if you really wait that long. He faces Jacksonville in week 1.
I also love how you say like Derek Carr. Like Derek Carr and Jameis Winston are just definitely at the same tier, where I don't know that anyone else thinks that. But
well, I know because Jameis Winston's had a top 5 fantasy season and Derek Carr's never really shown us that.
You always say that, but that's so unfair because if you like the player, you wouldn't care about his past like that. I mean,
no, I don't think that's true. For players that have been in the league for 5, 7, 10 years, I do care if they have shown us the ability to do something in the past. Often when guys have career years at age 28, 29, 30, I am the low guy on them the following year. I do think what guys have done throughout their 20s matter when they're in their 30s.
Yeah, it does, but that's a silly argument because Jameis Winston had a top 5 quarterback season when he, I believe, led the NFL in pass attempts on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So nobody thinks he's got that potential now with this, and you don't either. I'm not saying that you do. But Derek Carr, I mean, the appeal of Derek Carr is that he just got Devontae Adams. So it's just different circumstances.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Jameis Winston's got Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, and Jarvis Landry.
Jameis is a good sleeper too, right? I mean, Jameis could definitely help you win. Just not exciting, but he can help you win. All right, how about Nyheim Hines? Where are you on Nyheim Hines right now, Heath? He is currently RB43 on Fantasy Pros and RB41 on NFC over the past week, and even over the past 2 days, RB41, about 120th overall. Nyheim Hines.
When you go 0 RB, you should have a combination of guys who you think could hit it big with an injury and guys who can be possible low-end starters for you without one. And Hines falls into that second group. I've got him in the RB 32, 33 range. I expect a bounce back more to maybe not all the way, but close to what we saw 2 years ago from Hines when he was, I believe, a top 20 running back for the season and RB 30 on a per game basis. I think we'll see more catches because, for one reason, we're going to see more pass attempts from the Colts. Frank Reich's even talked about that. So, good bounce back. And I like the fact that it looks like if something happens to Taylor, that we might see 15 touches a game from Hines. He may have more of that. He's not Kareem Hunt, but more of that Kareem Hunt flex with Taylor, starter, top 15 back maybe without him.
So should I spend a mid to late round pick? Depends. Okay, after round 8 pick on James Robinson or Nyheim Hines?
I would take Hines over Robinson, and we should probably let Dave speak negatively about Hines because he's about ready to burst at the seams.
I'm not ready to burst at the seams. I've enjoyed just sitting back, and I think this is the longest I've gone without participating in the podcast in my entire career. So thanks for the break.
I know.
I liked it though. The Urban Meyer. Adam unleashed hell on Urban Meyer. Heath dropped bombs on his sleepers. This was fun to listen to. It was cool. I disagree on Hines. I think that he's a good passing downs back, but I don't know if he's got the upside to be any better than a number 3 fantasy running back. Because of that upside cap, I'm not as excited to take him. I'd rather take a chance on Robinson's upside before I would go with Nyheim Hines' upside. And as for Justin Fields, I'm wondering on Fields a little bit because I thought he processed a lot better in the preseason game. I thought he got rid of the ball a little bit faster. I'm scared to death of that offensive line, but a bad offensive line could lead to more rushing, which leads to more fantasy points. So what have I said about Trey Lance all along is that there isn't a player in fantasy with as much upside as Lance once you get to round 10. I think it's clear that there isn't a quarterback with as much upside as Justin Fields by the time you get to round 11. So Fields to me is someone, if let's say you miss on Trey Lance, boom, you just go with Justin Fields next. And you hope that his receivers make plays for him. Mooney made a hell of a catch in that preseason game. So did Tajay Sharp. And they weren't badly thrown balls. One of them it looked like a bad decision by Fields. But I think he's got potential to have a pretty good year after all.
I didn't know that Heath had a dog. You learn something new about your coworkers every day.
Yeah, it's really been a fine performance from my household in terms of getting a podcast out today.
Well, you've been doing this at home for 3 years now, and I never knew you had a dog, so that's pretty good. Let's take a bow, take a bark. Nyheim Hines, I just want to say my favorite format to draft a guy like Nyheim Hines is a 14-team PPR league. A consistent contributor that you can use as a flex. And I will target those pass catching running backs in that type of format. But even if
you know where he went in a 14-team PPR draft that I was in on Saturday?
No, where?
Take a guess.
Well, the way you're saying it, I'm going to guess like round 6.
Round 9.
Oh my God. That's a great pick in a 14-team league.
It's 3 receivers and 3 flex.
I love it. I just drafted him in our Rasball, my Rasball league, in a full PPR league, 12 teams.
I do think that deeper format does help him.
Yes.
Even 2 flexes does help
that's
him.
what Rasball is, yeah. And it's best ball. And like you said, if Jonathan Taylor gets hurt, it does seem like he might have more work than we may have thought. Jamaal Williams is RB 50 on Fantasy Pros. And as part of your DeAndre Swift was a loser take, I guess, is that Jamaal Williams is a winner.
I just don't think Jamaal Williams is going away. And both Jamaal Williams and DeAndre Swift have had a hard time staying healthy. But when we saw Williams without Swift last year, we saw he's going to get a big workload if there's no DeAndre Swift. He's got a chance to score touchdowns and maybe give you, 50 to 60 yards when Swift is healthy with a couple of catches. So, he's doesn't have the target upside that Hines does. But I think he gets more carries even when Swift is healthy than Hines. And if something happens to Swift, he might get 18 carries a game.
Would you rather have Jamaal Williams or Ken Walker?
Walker.
I would rather have Walker.
Okay, Jamaal Williams or Melvin Gordon?
Oh, Melvin. For sure.
Jamaal
Melvin's
Williams.
in Kareem Hunt range for me.
Okay, Jamaal Williams or Alexander Madison?
Jamaal.
Madison.
Okay, obviously they're very different players. If Swift gets hurt and Cook get hurt, how much better is Madison than Williams?
Much.
I think I would bet on Madison being a top 10 running back in that situation and Williams being somewhere between 10 and 20.
Okay, let's talk about some young wide receivers that you like. George Pickens, you already talked about. Jalen Tolbert and Nico Collins. How do you rank George Pickens, Jalen Tolbert of the Cowboys, Nico Collins of the Houston Texans?
I've got projections versus rankings different here, but I will go Pickens, Collins, Tolbert. And I would expect, we've heard Jacob Gibbs talk about how Brandon Cook's target share was negatively affected by Collins last year. There's nobody else on this team that you could say that about. It's a 2-man pass catching core. So I do think that Collins could be a high-end flex, maybe a borderline number 3 if things go right and Cooks stays healthy. And if something happens to Cooks, I believe he could be a high-end number 3 or a low-end number 2 wide receiver. Tolbert has a chance to start the year off in that range, but I don't have a lot. I think he's more of a short-term player, maybe somebody you pair with DeAndre Hopkins at least to get you off to the start of the year.
Okay. Yeah. If you heard our Jalen Tolbert profile over the weekend, a lot of air yards in college, a lot of target share, more so than almost any, the combination of two, more so than almost any receivers in college football. Jacob Gibbs loves Jalen Tolbert. Nico Collins is a guy who 6'4", 215 pounds, ran a 4.43. He's big outside receiver and didn't do a ton last year, but obviously it's a great opportunity with the Texans. It was a 3rd-round pick in 2021. The 2 tight ends that Heath already talked about were Irv Smith and Tyler Higbee as sleepers, and that is more or less going to do. I want to give you guys one sleeper. You may not have heard of this guy. Kind of young, hopefully finding his footing, but I like the offense that he's on. Julio Jones. Look him up. He is currently
That's a great call.
He's wide receiver 63. And, you can talk about all these young, unproven guys are very exciting. Don't sleep on Julio Jones. He's going just before Romeo Doubs, for example, over the last week on NFC. And, I think this is sleepers win you weeks, breakouts win you leagues. I don't think Julio Jones is going to win you your league. I do think there's going to be some big weeks for Julio Jones. And, I think he's a sleeper. I'd get him. Would you guys rather have Julio Jones or George Pickens, Jalen Tolbert, and Nico Collins?
The young
I'm
guys.
double checking to see where I have him ranked compared to Pickens. I have Julio ranked ahead of Pickens. I don't know if I'm going to stand by that, but I'd say they're close and ahead of the other guys.
A couple of other sleepers that seem to fall further every draft we do, especially if you have IR spots, Gallup and Jamison Williams.
Oh, boy, did you just segue into our emails because Mark wants to know Do you have a recommendation for final round IR stashes?
Gallup won't
Those
be
are
there.
them.
Williams might be there. Gus Edwards should be there. Odell Beckham should be there.
Odell
wait
Beckham
until
will
the
not be
last
there because he's
round.
not on a roster.
Oh, true. You can't put him on.
Oh, that's right. You're absolutely right.
You don't have to wait until the final round to take an IR guy. If you like Michael Gallup, for example, take him in the third to last round or something like that. Don't take him over great players, but you don't have to wait until the very end.
Is Christian Watson on anything right now?
On the field.
No, he is off the pup
He's off
list.
pup.
Okay. I knew he was doing some side work, but I didn't know.
From no name, Dave, give me a name in a city.
Devontae from Foxborough, Massachusetts.
Dear Sean, Pete, Cliff, and Kyle. Oh, those are coaches. Sean McVay, Cliff Kingsbury, Kyle Shanahan. Oh, no, the NFC West. There we go. I keep hearing
with a K.
Debo drop slowly down the rankings as the offseason goes on. But he finished as wide receiver 3 in PPR last year. I understand he's the number 1 regression candidate in the league, but is there really 20-plus guys with more upside? Well, no. We're not saying he's not a top 20 receiver, but does anybody want to?
I think we're saying he's not a top 20 pick is what he's referencing.
Oh, okay. Are there 20-plus guys? Then that's a good question. Are there 20-plus guys with more upside than Deebo Samuel?
I don't think anybody's questioning his talent or his role in San Francisco. I think everybody's questioning whether or not he can do what he just did again. Tons of rushing touchdowns on top of receiving touchdowns. Seems a little hard to believe. Kyle Shanahan says he's going to keep using him as a runner. He wants to scheme him up and use him more as like a matchup based runner, not as a typical running back like he did last year. He wants to keep that wear and tear off of him. And I'm sure they're going to scheme him up in the passing game a lot.
Well, so the thing is, I actually think it's a good call that Deebo Samuel might have that there may not be 20 players who have more upside than Deebo Samuel, but that's not how you rank it because we think he has more downside than the fantasy community thinks.
But I have him at pick 22, so it's not like I struggle with him and Swift. Like, does he have more downside than DeAndre Swift does?
I don't know.
It's hard to make that argument.
I think Swift's got more upside, so that's an easy one for me.
Man, I have a hard time seeing how Swift could have a better year than Samuel did last year.
I don't think Samuel has the year that he had last year.
All right, this is from T-Bro, from the gateway to the Midwest.
That's St. Louis. Wait, gateway to the Midwest.
I thought St. Louis is the gateway to the West.
Gateway to the West, right.
Gateway to the Midwest. Heath, you need to know this. You from the Midwest.
I do not even agree with everyone about what constitutes the Midwest. So I would be a bad person to choose. It makes no sense at all to me that we've decided that like half of the northeast quadrant of the country is in the Midwest.
Like what?
I would say like Memphis,
Ohio,
could be the gateway.
Illinois, Michigan, Western Pennsylvania.
Ohio
People call this
is
the Midwest.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the Rust Belt, isn't it? Ohio,
Northern Ohio is
not the Midwest. Yeah, I agree with you. If people think that, then they're cray. All right, so T-Bro says we just completed our 10-team PPR redraft last night. First time using Fab. Do you change your bench strategy when you have a Fab league instead of a regular waiver league?
No.
Thankfully.
I mean, not during the draft.
Right.
Thankfully, obviously. I think it's easier to do zero RB in a Fab league than it is in a regular waivers league. Because if you do zero RB and then you win a couple games to start the year, you may not ever get a chance at the waiver wire running backs.
Right. Whereas if you know you really need RBs, you spend big on that first one that comes out.
Thankfully, we have almost no non-Fab leagues left.
In our, like for us?
Yeah.
Right. We like the Fab.
I got to tell you, I like Fab too, but when you're in a lot of leagues, I do not want all of them to be Fab. It is more work and more time. That is the appeal of waivers. It would be like if all of our leagues were salary cap drafts. That would be torture. From awesome. Kyle, picking 101, 12-team PPR. I want to take Taylor, then A.J. Brown, and Kyle Pitts with my first 3 picks. Is that too early for Pitts and Brown? Really for Pitts.
It is for Pitts.
I will say this guy's name is Kyle, so he might want to draft a Kyle. That make
you think
any
he's going
difference?
to take Kyle Juszczyk with his last pick?
If he could spell it. All right, that's too early. So 25th overall is too early for Pitts.
It's too early for Pitts, and Andrews might be there.
And I'm not taking A.J. Brown at 24th either, but
The only
there's probably
argument,
going to be a receiver better than that there.
the only argument that I'll give you for Pitts is if Andrews is gone and then you don't think Kittle or Waller will be there at the end of round 4 for your next pick. No, I wouldn't take Pitts 25th, but that is the case. All right. How do you value tight ends and quarterbacks differently in 10 versus 12 team leagues? That question is from Con.
You tend to take the superstars a little bit earlier at quarterback in a 10-team league. Kelsey, it's the same thing. You're going to take him late first, early second. Andrews will probably go in the second round in a 10-team league. Someone will want to grab him. But that's really it. Like the superstars go just a little bit earlier in a 10-team league because more talent at running back and wide receiver drop because smaller rounds, fewer managers, fewer drafters.
yeah, I'd take Kelsey and Andrews in the top 4 quarterbacks earlier. But if I missed those guys, I would wait until the very last round because there's going to be good quarterbacks left.
And I just want to clarify. It's not that I think the University of Florida did anything that the University of Miami or all other schools don't do. It's specific.
I don't think you should go any further than that. I think you should just stop right there.
It is specific to Urban Meyer. I just thought he was a rare breed.
So I was right.
And you were right about what?
That you should have just stopped right there.
No, why? We are so politically correct on this podcast. I'm not saying anything bad. Not an Urban Meyer guy. Not at all. All right, we're out of here.
Fine.
Yeah. We are out of here, everybody. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Actually, we'll talk to you tonight with a live mock draft at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. And we'll have busts on Wednesday, breakouts on Thursday. Have a good one. See ya.